You drive me crazy. I just can't sleep. You have to know who that is. Come on, you have to know who that is. Britney Spears, a throwback. I can't believe I just called Britney Spears a throwback. All right, back to the show. Hello, everybody. My name is Richard Francois. I am your dating strategist. Elaine will not be joining us tonight. We have a great show for you nonetheless. And very soon will be joining me an extra special guest. But why did I start the show with this song? Why did I choose that as my intro? Is the world of dating driving you crazy? Is it? Today, we're going to talk about that. Hopefully, not in a literal sense, but we want to offer you some strategies, some insights, some hope in this dating world that may make some of you rip your hair out and look like me. Now, don't try this at home. This is not a hairstyle that everybody can pull off. So don't try it at home, especially if you're not rocking a beard to make up for it. Don't rip your hair out. We are going to give you some tips tonight on how to succeed better in dating. If you are watching the show, be sure to like it. Be sure to like our page. Share it with your friends so that we can continue to grow and offer this message to more people. And also comment. This is a live show, which means when I see your comments, we can interact with you. If you ask a question, we'll be able to answer it and make this more of an interactive show, not just a passive watching TV kind of experience. Not that there's anything wrong with watching TV, but shows are better. Live shows or interactive are better. I am going to now bring on our guest very soon. Let me just say a few words about him. Buck Weaver is a psychologist who's been doing great work for humankind for 33 years. 33 years. I don't know how many of you have had the same job for 33 years. That's very impressive in and of itself. He is a psychologist who specializes in a number of disciplines. He helps students alleviate stress when it comes to their schooling in high school and college. But he also works with people who are navigating the treacherous waters of the dating world and are experiencing actual clinical anxiety from it and other clinical difficulties. Buck is just a big heart with a beard. He is fantastic. I've had the opportunity to work with him. And what makes him unique is the fact that his training, his work that he does with his clients is strength-based. So he's not going to tell you, hey, get better at this thing. He's going to find what is it you're already good at and have that then carry the day and have that be the thing that becomes the answer to your challenge. Without further ado, I want Buck to come on the show now and welcome Buck Weaver. Hello. Welcome back to the show. I didn't say this. This is your second time on the show, I believe. So yes. Glad to have you back.
Great to be here.
Last time you were here, you were sharing the screen with another guest. But today I've got you all to myself, and I am excited.
Great. Me too.
Excellent. So let's get right into it, Buck. Let's talk about dating and anxiety, the stresses that dating can actually provoke for people, because it's not just exaggeration or hype when people say dating can cause anxiety. As a psychologist, you've worked with people who have experienced tons of anxiety. What is one of the things that causes the most anxiety for people when it comes to dating?
Well, usually failure, not being successful at your efforts. And that when you go out, you won't have anything to say. I mean, our minds really work against us in any risk that we take. When you think back of any risk that you've had in the past, no matter what it was, academics, social, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. The initial phase is anxiety and apprehension, because you can imagine more things going wrong than you can imagine things going right. It's the human nature. It's really the human nature. So there's many really good things that I think people could think about when they begin or continue in the dating world that will alleviate fears and alleviate anxieties, because the more they're alleviated, the more confidence one is likely to have and the more success one is likely to have, because they have some confidence, not overconfidence, because that's terrible. You know, if you're acting confident and you're not really, people can sense that out a mile away. But I'm talking about real confidence. And that's one of the things that a lot of men don't have when they are really wanting to approach or continue in the dating world. So there's many different things that you can do about that fear, and I'm happy to get into that. Or do you have another question you want me to take in another direction?
Let's talk more about the fears. Yes.
Yes. Continue.
And let's talk more about the fears. And you were saying there's things you can do about that fear. So what are some things?
Okay. Number one, and there's several, it's really important to know your strengths and your compassions, the things that you have found that you're good at, that you're compassionate about, that you want to learn or have learned. The best part of preparing for dating, in my opinion, is to, and you know I'm a strength-oriented psychologist,
is
to really look at your life, ask friends, ask family if you need, whatever, but ask others about what they think your strengths are. And you write down what you think your strengths are, the things you're good at, the things you've been good at, whether it's, baseball, cooking, the things that you enjoy that you're good at. Because the best thing about preparing for dating is preparing yourself to be confident. And the best way to be confident is to not only have a list of things that you've liked and about yourself, or that you feel that you've done well at, but also examples of them. Because that way you move into a dating situation knowing yourself, knowing what you've done well, what you like. It's the absolute key to really good conversation. It's not to be flaunting yourself, right? But it's just to be knowing yourself when someone says, so, what do you like doing? Or what have you done? Or who are you, right?
That sounds like really great advice. I'm sorry I just interrupted you, but what sounds really awesome about that is that it helps a person get grounded in who they are in a positive way, rather than being all over the place thinking about, well, what if this, what if that, what happens here, being in the uncertainty. They get grounded, and this is what I'm bringing to the table in this conversation. And that can be very calming and settling, rather than just, well, what if they ask me what I do and I don't like what I do? Well, that's just one aspect of what you bring, what you do for work. Is definitely more than that to an individual.
And the other part of this is when you focus on yourself in terms of knowing what you're good at or what you like, you're not focusing on a date at first. This is part of preparation, because the second thing that I would mention to men being getting ready, right, is to have questions that are who, what, when, and where type questions. Who are you? When did you start this? What do you do? How do you do it? Those kinds of questions are not yes, no answers. And men often, like to get down to the yes, no answers. I mean, we're impatient, right?
Doing a checklist.
Yeah, is to have a list of things that you are comfortable asking that need to be answered in at least a description of a sentence or a paragraph. So the more prepared you are, right, the more comfortable you are, the more confident you are, the more comfortable you are saying, listen, this activity is an activity where, I am not going to expect the best thing ever, the first date or the second or the third date. I want to practice. I want to practice dating before I think about something that's the real deal. And the best way to do that is someplace without an awful lot of commitment, like a cup of coffee,
That's right.
be able to get prepared for dating is something that will not only help you for dating, but it's going to help your whole life, knowing what your strengths are and having confidence. You know, at work, with your family, with your friends. I mean, there's some really good ways of getting to know yourself so that your confidence grows. And it's a genuine confidence, not a fake confidence. And, you know, sometimes when I start with people, I say, okay, so how many strengths do you think you have? Right. And, you know, some
Yes.
people, you know, 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever. And I say, well, okay, well, let's keep that in mind. Let's start generating. And, you know, before too long, we're up to 30 and 40 when you start thinking about things like honesty or integrity or work ethic or, you know, a good family or a family that wasn't that good that you've gotten some good things from. I mean, there are a tremendous amount of things that are positive about people, even when in the first hour of doing that kind of activity. So, you know, to me, the best way for dating is to develop the confidence through self-knowledge and self-appreciation and knowing that the struggles that you've had before are going to help you with these struggles. You know, nothing's
So
going to
get
kill
to know
you.
who you are, get to know what's good about yourself, and get to know what it is that you bring to the proverbial table. We had a whole show last week about bringing things, what you bring to the table, and we had a special guest here for that. I was not here, but we had a whole show last week on that topic. So thank you for
Yeah.
reinforcing that from the psychological perspective. We had some other questions that we had wanted to ask you about. Let's see what the next question is that pop up on our screen. What can people do about the things that they are stressed about when it comes to dating?
Well, again, these are habits or strategies or coping abilities that's very important to develop and to practice. First of all, when we're stressed, our bodies get into a fight or flight mode, even though you haven't moved. And before long, you are tight as a drum. You are really struggling, and all you can feel is anxiety. So there's several things that's important to practice. The first is deep breathing. And the reason that deep breathing is really important is because it over oxygenates the muscles in your body. It makes you feel calm. And the more you practice, the better you are at it. And, you know, you can do it in a very private way, or, you know, before you go to sleep, when you wake up, it's really good to have as a second nature.
So
Another
have
thing,
deep breathing as a practice, like meditation or just deep breath work, not just vaping.
let, let me demonstrate good
Yes.
breathing, because you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And it looks exactly like this. And you hold it for a little bit and then exhale. And you really get your whole diaphragm up. And you find that if you do that, even right now, right,
Mm.
for 10 breaths or so, you will feel your body relax. Okay. And when you feel your body relax and you know that this is a very helpful thing, right, it really helps you do something about stress, because stress by its very nature is a feeling of not being in control. So as soon as you make the decision to deep breathe, you are now taking control over yourself and you're taking control over the stress. So it's really important to be able to, even before, let's say, when if you are going to go out on a date or whatever, you know, to take 5 minutes and deep breathe right before you go in is really going to prepare you. It's just like if you want to swim as far as you want underwater, right? What's the first thing anybody does? They start breathing heavy because you want to over oxygenate your body. So it's
Yes.
natural for us to do that. A secondary thing is to learn how to be mindful, to learn how to be in the moment so that you're not thinking about the future or the past, the successes of the future you hope for, or the failures of the past, is really staying in the moment. You can look at things, feel things, sense things, and if you look around right now, you will find that when you look around and you look at items all over your desk, you're not having one thought of stress because you're in the moment. The thing that stresses you is when you start thinking too much about the future. So that's good. And of course, meditation and, making sure that you're sleeping well and you're eating well. I mean, those things are very important, as well. But I just consider these as preparing for the sequence of events for successful dating.
Yes, and preparing is so important in dating. However, so many people don't even think that that's something they need to do. They just go, "I'm gonna wing it," or worse, they'll say, "I'll just go be myself," whatever that actually means. Well, of course, you'd be yourself. You wouldn't be a hippopotamus, but what does it mean to be oneself? And does being prepared mean you're not being yourself? It's funny. Dating is the only place I know where people think if they're prepared, they're being phony. You don't show up to a job interview prepared and think I'm being phony.
Right.
A surgeon would not take the time to prepare for surgery and think I'm being phony. Would you like a surgeon to go, I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to really think about what I learned in medical school. I'm just going to be myself on your surgery today. That make, but people do that with dating, and dating is it's a very important activity. If you don't do it with the right mindset and with intention, it could lead to a lot of trouble.
Well, you lead to being impulsive and your judgment isn't good. You're uptight. You make the poorest judgments when you're uptight and stressed. And as you
Yes.
just said, you wouldn't show up for a job interview not having spent some time looking at the work and how it relates and how you could be good at it. So I just
Right.
think that
And how you connect.
so I think the preparation is all in line with feeling confident, not only in dating but in life. Very important.
All right. You heard it here, people. Dr. Buck Weaver, the psychologist, says preparation is good and maybe even necessary. It's a good idea to prepare when you're going on dates. We
So
had some additional.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You
Oh, I
first.
wanted to go to our next question, but we have time, so go ahead and chime in with whatever you had in mind.
Well, I also think that it's a really good idea to think about the phases of dating. Right? The first phase is really important to lower your expectations. Lower your expectations. Because what you want to do is to practice dating, right? You don't want to have the person show up on the doorstep and that's the end. Almost never happens that way. Almost never happens. So the best framework for beginning the dating process is to say, I'm going to practice. I'm going to use this as an interview, just like you would at various job interviews. You go to various jobs interviews and you see what kind of questions they ask and what the environment is like, because then you're not so afraid to take healthy risks with your questions and being able to describe yourself and getting to know somebody deeply. And one of the things that a lot of people may not focus on is the things that they know or that they like that's really interesting. I mean, if you have an interest in astronomy, or you have an interest in cooking, or you have an interest in something that has fascinated you, you know, people like talking about what they know and what they like. So does a woman. So these are things to say. I when I date, I am not going to have high expectations because there's no way that you will not feel like a failure when it doesn't work out. It's much better to think, hey, you know what? Maybe this is my own form of video game. You know what I mean? And
Video game, nice.
yeah, so whenever you start a new video game, you got to learn, you got to figure it out, and through success and failure is how you do it. So failure is not a bad thing in dating. It's a good thing because it lets you know what you can do differently for the next person. So go into it with feeling like, you know what, I just want to know and learn how to ask questions of a person as soon as I get to meet them, because that's the best way that's going to be attractive to that person, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it sounds like a fun experiment. You're trying to see what's going to work, what's not going to work, and being willing to be surprised, because there have been times when I've been certain about a particular outcome, but then things go very differently from what I was certain they would go.
And I can tell you one other aspect of this that's very important. If something doesn't go right for a man in their first date, the worst thing you can say is, "What was wrong with me?" Forget about it.
Mm,
Every woman has her own personality, her own likes and dislikes, and there is no way that you can affect that in such a way that you're responsible for it. So you need to say, "Listen, what did I learn? How did I get out? Whatever." But don't feel responsible for the failures that that will just defeat your future risk taking, right? So failures are not bad things. You just got to realize that what I'm going to focus on is effort, not success.
focus on the activity, not the outcome or the result. And then the outcome
Absolutely
will take care of itself as long as you continue improving the process.
right. And don't blame yourself for anything that goes wrong. Listen, let's just say you make a big mistake. You dropped your dish on the floor, or you said the wrong thing to somebody or whatever, right? Those things
Yes.
those things are recoverable by a quick and easy, I'm sorry. Let's move on. Is
And if
taking
they're not, could that be a sign that this person is not the person for you? If a slight mistake is not recoverable with the I'm sorry?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's what I was alluding to before. If someone doesn't take your apology, right, that's not your fault. That's the way they are. That's their personality. You can't take responsibility for somebody else's personality. And so it's a really good way to distance
Mm.
yourself from any failure that you have, and so that you can feel much more positive about the next time. If you get discouraged, you can be discouraged for a long time. Not good. Really not
And
good.
yes, and
What?
dating can be discouraging, and is discouraging to many many singles who range the spectrum from just mildly disappointed to jaded to downright resigned about the dating scene. I've lost count of how many people have told me they don't even bother trying to date anymore, or that they've definitely not tried online dating for some time because it just brings so much anxiety for them.
But then they're not enjoying life. You know what I mean?
Right.
To be able to enjoy life is to say yes to as many healthy things as you can. Are you dating? Are you going online? Yes. Yes. Have you found anybody online? Yes. Interesting people. Yes, I have. Did it come to anything? Well, it's not coming to anything yet, but I'm not saying no. I'm just not going to say no. So, persistence is one of the main factors in a human personality that leads to success in almost every area of our lives. What do you
And
think about
thank you,
them?
thank you.
All right.
That's yes, that's very insightful. So thank you for that perspective. Just want to acknowledge Carla's comment here. Carla has commented a few times, and the last thing Carla says is, "That's right." I'll keep that in mind. It's not your fault that others have a different personality. No, people just have different personalities. It's not good, bad, wrong. They just have a personality that's different from yours, and different is what has us connect oftentimes, because what you bring is different from what I bring, and then we can just compare notes, and we can just have one person's strengths fill in the gaps where the other person doesn't have those strengths. If you are both exactly the same thing, then who fills in the gaps where one person doesn't have the strength? My girlfriend is very good at organizing things, spreadsheets, things like that. She's very good at them. I'm better when it comes to fixing things, or when it comes to the more creative things. And then that becomes handy, because when it comes to having something that needs to have method or organization to it, that comes easy for her. When it comes to some of the creative aspects, that comes easier for me. She can follow a cooking recipe and just deliver it like that. I feel hampered by a cooking recipe. It takes me a lot longer to be looking at it and switching back and forth. My brain doesn't work like that. But we can open the same fridge. She'll look at the fridge and go, "Oh, there's nothing to eat here. I'll just order." And I open the same fridge, and in 45 minutes we have a meal because our minds work differently. Hers is not better than mine. Mine is not better than hers, but they're different in certain respects.
So if she was to judge you by your cooking ability and you felt like you were a failure, that would be totally inappropriate.
It
You
would
don't
be.
have that skill. And so that's why that comment that I think it was a woman that just said is one of the most important things that you can think about yourself. It's not your fault to be different.
Yeah, that's right. It's not your fault to be different. Well, Andrea, I wish we had more time to go over your question here, but let's have Buck explore it a little bit. What do you think of this question? Andrea says, "How do you know if you just haven't met the right one, as opposed to having a real deep intimacy issue?" I think that's a great question, Andrea, and probably something to maybe explore further with a professional. But Buck, we have you here. What's your initial thought on this question? Met the right person versus real deep intimacy issue.
Because it's a process, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't happen one way or the other way. It is important to have dates, more than one, figuring things out, seeing what they like, seeing what you like, right? Because the more commonalities, the more fun you have, the more likely it will evolve over time into a really nice intimate relationships. When dating starts with intimate relationships, there's a very, very good chance it's not going to last long, right? Because not only, I mean, people do enjoy being intimate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's too soon, then there's not an appreciation for each other the way a deeper, more more intimate relationship is that you imply from your question. It takes time to get to somebody so that you know that you have absolute trust in that person, that you can share the worst of things or the best of things. And the best part, in my opinion, about intimacy is not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy. Can you be open? Can you feel like you can make mistakes and it's okay because someone prefers you because of the way that you are? So, to focus on mental intimacy is a really important way to get to other forms of intimacy that are so important in a long lasting relationship.
I'm glad you brought up that word, Buck. The word intimacy is something I notice a lot, and quite frankly, it's one of my pet peeves. Is that so many people, whether it be civilians or people in the industry of coaching or psychology, misuse the word intimacy to mean sex. I see it all the time on TV, and I think part of it is the censorship, where on TV they can't use that word too much at certain times of the day, whatever. So they'll use intimacy as a euphemism, but it's misleading because intimacy is not sex. Sex is not intimacy. You can be deeply intimate with someone and never be sexual, and you can be very sexual with someone and have no intimacy there. And so I'm really glad you brought that up. It might be good to have a show where we talk about that more and bring an expert in to talk about it if you want to talk about it some, or some other thing. So Andrea says she meant it the way. So I think you answered Andrea's question. So thank you for your question, Andrea, for participating. I think we had one more question saved up for you. We're at the 30-minute mark. Let's just flash it on the screen and see what you have to say about the last question. I think Carla had a question. So um, what are the different phases in dating from a psychological perspective? Is the honeymoon phase a psychological phase of dating?
Yes, of course. The honeymoon phase is a phase. And that's where you see no problems with the other person at all. You're infatuated, right?
You
And
found the
people
soulmate.
and people love to be infatuated. And they like to have nothing else on the mind other than the other person, right? So that is a very rosy time that I think you should really enjoy. Why would you not enjoy the rosiest time of a relationship? Because it's really
Yes.
not the rosiest time. It's really later on. But then, the second part, which I think is really important for people to consider while they're in the rosiest part, is, hey, listen, I just I'm interested in the things that we're similar about and the things that we're not similar about. Not because you're going to bring that up in some kind of a negative way, but just to be mindful. It's really mindful as you get into the second phase. It's like, for those that play chess, there's the first game and the mid game and the end game, right? And so it's really important to think about where you are in the phases so that you can kind of predict where things are going and what you're going to need to do to adjust. What you're going to need to do to adjust. What you're going to need to do to adjust, not the other person. That's a problem if you're thinking it's going to happen that way. We all kind of know that, but it's really important to think about it. So, and then of course the best phase, the best phase is when there's trust and commitment. There's nothing quite like commitment, right? Because then you have the sense that this is not going away, that someone appreciates me with all of my wrinkles and all of my strengths, and I do the same, and we are forever going to be entwined, which of course is hard to say these days, but that's the way I like to approach it. I just gave a wedding. I mean, I officiated a wedding of my nieces and nephews in Philadelphia, and
Nice.
it's so wonderful when people make up their own things that they want. Yeah, wedding vows, right? How deep, how lovely, how wide. I mean, this particular couple had been a couple for 12 years and they were getting married. Pretty cool.
Wow.
So sometimes the end game takes a bit of time, but boy, I tell you, I haven't seen two happier people.
That's just great. That is just great. Well, the unhappy part is that we are at time, so we have to stop here, Buck. I want to thank you for coming on the show a second time, giving us more of your insight. It was great having you here.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody how they can contact you if they have questions for you? Where do they go on the internet to find you, your website, your Facebook page? And Carla will flash it on the screen as well.
Well, I am the director and neuropsychologist at the Weaver Center. And you can see our homepage there, and you can look up the Weaver Center in Wayland, Massachusetts. And I would encourage anybody, if you wish, you can call my cell phone, 781-789-9747. That phone number that was just flashed goes directly to the Weaver Center, but I gave you the number that comes directly to me. And if Richard and I can help you with something, I'd be very happy to field some questions. There's never any cost to a phone call. And it's one of the things about the Weaver Center. We all give out our cell phones if people want to text or call. So I hope that's enough of a set of information. Or you could email me at rweaver@weavercenter.org.
rweaver@weavercenter.org. And say the phone number one more time slowly for everybody who missed it the first time.
Okay, 781-789-9747.
All right. Thank you, Buck. Thank you for joining us on the Astound Yourself Dating Show. Wonderful having you. Always good talking to you. Here you have it, everybody. This was Dr. Buck Weaver, psychologist, giving us some insight on how to enjoy dating more and how to navigate it with all the anxiety or other unpleasant emotions that can come along with that. We will see you next week for another episode of the Astound Yourself Dating Show. My name is Richard Francois, your dating strategist. And speaking to you, especially Mr. Nice Guy. If you've ever been called sweet, nice, if you've ever been told don't ever change like a woman you wanted to kiss, but she only ever gave you handshakes, I am the coach for you. Let's talk about how to transform you into a guy that women look at and want to kiss, a guy who is magnetic towards the woman of your choice. Let's talk about that. Send me a chat directly here, Astound Yourself Dating, or you could go to grichard360.com. That is grichard360.com. You can contact me there as well. We will see you all next week. Thanks for watching the show, everybody.